whose school colors are black and blue, just because they got beat up, and are willing to share knowledge that can help make the entrepreneurial experience more bearable, and it's non-traditional. So this is just, we've been doing a few of these. We're going to keep it going. And we like to bring in people that can give you some out of the box knowledge that can help you succeed on your entrepreneurial journey. Or in this case, fail, but fail forward and survive it and live to talk about it. And in my case, laugh about it.
How did you come up with this idea initially? I mean, what happened? So why did you decide to do something for founders?
I mean, essentially, startups attract psychopaths. That's the one thing I've learned over all my years of entrepreneurship is startups attract psychopaths. And you have to kind of be a psychopath to want to do this. And the knowledge that's available for founders right now is just kind of the same stuff. Everybody wants to parade the successes. No one wants to talk about the defeats or the failures, even though it's the defeats and the failures that we learn from that can be most helpful, which is why if you go into, a bookstore or go on Amazon, every entrepreneurship book, self-transformation book, self-help book, motivational book always has someone's ugly face on the cover, with the arms crossed, pointing at you something. And I'm a millionaire and you can too for $9.99, and it's just kind of the same stuff and the same kind of overall garbage that's being repeated. And, entrepreneurship, it's a zero-sum game. I mean, like 99% of startups fail, 99% of founders fail, and you have to keep going. So with me, I was tired of just hearing all the normal like garbage that everyone spews out. And I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, and I've kind of got the education side of it where I got a degree in entrepreneurship, but I also have the street side of it where I did it myself. And I just delved in and plunged in and hustled my way into a variety of different, verticals and industries and learned along the way. And I feel like that is valuable and it can help other people. So I want to help other people because everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, and real entrepreneurs are like, I would never want anyone to be an entrepreneur. So there's got to be a happy medium where if you're going to do this, we need entrepreneurs to do this. We need founders to do this. But at the same time, you have to be properly equipped. And, founder fortitude is about being properly equipped, from hearing from, people that don't have a bazillion followers on social media, but they don't need it because they're too busy working. They're too busy making things happen. They're too busy actually living and breathing it than to boast about it. And there's really, again, nothing to boast about, when you're trying to make something happen. It's just a constant grind. And I feel like people need to have knowledge of that grind and need to have a toolkit that prepares them to be successful in that grind.
Yeah, that's how we're actually moving forward to our today's topic, which is not about just failures, but also about like public failures, also about how society is going to perceive you, how society is going to make you stressed and make you feel uncomfortable, because no one actually likes you when you're a small startup, right? You are trying to change the world, you are trying to do things, and then all the people around you, they're like, okay, so another startup doing some stuff and so on. And then when you're big, everyone was, oh, I supported you so much.
Oh, of course. Everybody, nobody wants to be the first fan of anything. The first investor, the first customer, the first fan, the first supporter. Nobody. It costs nothing, but nobody wants to put their name on something or someone. To them, it's just kind of, why. But when they make it, I was there at the very beginning. I knew it was you. I believed in you and no one else would. And that's just never the case. I mean, the case is, as a founder, who's in your corner. You know who was there with you, who supported you, who came out, who was your first customer, who made an introduction, and people kind of, everyone wants to hang on. They want to be the fan, but they don't want to commit. So, I think today's topic is very important. And now as the room is getting, more full, the chat is open. Share your LinkedIns, network with one another, ask your questions. This is all about meeting other people. This is about learning. This is about just, having us answer your questions to the best of our ability and coming away a little stronger. With these talks, I go with the 3 E's. You want to be more educated, more enlightened, and more entertained. So that's how we're just trying to roll with it. So yeah, feel free again in the chat to network with each other, share what you're working on. You might meet other people. You might make some connections. If you have any Slack channels, groups, LinkedIn pages, whatever, it's a wide open thing. Meet some people and come out of this just a little stronger.
Yeah, amazing. And while we are waiting for our guests, let's start talking about these big failures and what the founders are experiencing, because basically that's one of our topics today: how to resist, what to do if you're everyone is writing you awful comments in social media, what to do if the customers are unsatisfied with your product, and they would be unsatisfied with your product. You're a startup at the end of the day, and they do it publicly, telling about how bad you are. What to do if even your closest friends, your nearest and dearest, are against you in this journey. I remember, Shaun, you had some experience like this when you were like
Um,
your business partner or your friend. I mean, many of them for sure, but what was the most awful one?
uh, that's a great question to start off the talk today. What is the most awful experience? I don't think there is just one. I just feel like there have been so many. I mean, there's a quote from the German poet Rainier Marie Rilke, and the quote says, the goal of life is to be defeated by greater and greater things. That's the opposite of what everyone tells you. The goal is to shoot for the moon, you'll land among the stars, and blah, blah. But the eventuality is you are going to fail and you are going to be defeated across the board. Nobody is undefeated. Everyone faces a failure daily. Just don't talk about it. And for me, I mean, doing so many different things, my failures are essentially more than I could count. But I feel like the biggest one that I always mention, even though I have others, but I always like to go back to the party I did on a boat when I was just turned 18 called Ghost Ship, because it was referred to as the Titanic, which was silly because the Titanic had survivors. Okay, this was literally, I started this nightlife company 2 months prior. This was my first big event. I staked all the money I had on my reputation on this. And there was this boat party that was a Halloween party that went on in the middle of a hurricane, in the middle of Biscayne Bay. And it was the worst experience of everyone's life. Not only the worst, like just party, but the worst experience of everyone's life. Seasickness, people getting drunk, people fighting, people demanding their money back. Literally, the reputation was ruined. Okay. And it's kind of like one of those things where a sane person would have been like, I'm never doing this again. I don't want to deal with the failure. I don't want to deal with feeling, like this. I don't want to have to go to class the next day at university and have everyone look at me like, what are you doing here? And, a sane person would say it's not for me. But again, startups attract psychopaths. And to me, it was like, no, I just used the wrong strategy. I'm going to keep going. And a lot of people that they won't talk about that.
How did you do it? I mean, how did you keep going at this specific moment when everything is ruined? Like you seem like to be the most awful person in the world. Everyone hates you, and you don't want to show up, and you don't want to talk to people, and that's the end of the life because it's the biggest failure you ever had. What keeps you going in this situation?
I mean, essentially, what it comes down to is, how bad do you want it? Like if you really want to do something, you'll do it. If not, you'll make an excuse. That's just the way to distinguish successful people from failures, is that I want to do something. I don't care what it's going to cost me in terms of resources, in terms of time, in terms of energy, in terms of reputation. I'm going to do it. And with nightlife, the pull was so strong with me. I mean, it was a chemical reaction when I got into it, where every fiber of my being was like, I want to do this. I want to make something happen. This is going to be what I'm going to be known for. This is the only business I want to do. And when you have that, obstacles that would stop other people, regardless of what your industry is, regardless of what verticals you're in, those obstacles that would stop you, they don't. The wall is a stepping stone to you. So now if I had that same kind of failure, and if it was in the vector and industry that I cared nothing about, let's just say software as a service for enterprise clients, my favorite vertical to hate on. If it was in something like that, where I couldn't get Fortune 500 companies to use a product, I would give up day one because I don't care about it. It's boring. I don't like it. I don't want anything to do with it. So essentially you have to believe in what you're doing as a founder, and you have to believe in it so much that, other people think that you're crazy. I mean, it's always the founders that are thought of as crazy are those ones that are successful, and the most successful, because they have a crazy idea that no one can see but them. They follow this idea despite the world. And the world, when you have a crazy idea, becomes experts. Every single person you meet, even if they have no idea what you're doing, is an expert to tell you why it's not going to work, why you don't have enough experience, why, you shouldn't be doing it. Or my favorite, you should get a real job, whatever that means. and it just essentially that's what people like to do. So you have to have this power within you. You have to have this inner drive to keep you going. And if you don't have it for your business, you shouldn't be in that business, because failure is more common than success. And you have to experience horrible failures. You have to experience getting beat up. You have to experience loss. You have to experience all of that so you can say, I'm still here. I'm still standing. Failure isn't fatal. And there's a quote by Edward E. Puritan from a book from like 1908 that no one's ever read, but he's a great author if anyone can find him, that says, no man truly fails if he believes in what he's doing. And that's kind of how you have to look at it. And two, you have to have this Edisonian attitude with Thomas Edison, where he remarked, I didn't fail. I found 10,000 ways that didn't work, when he's trying to discover the light bulb. And again, this is at a time when people were saying, why do we need electricity? We have candles. Why do you need a light bulb? We can just, we can burn candles. It's a stupid idea. So essentially, you have to believe in what you're doing. You have to be like a Steve Jobs, where you're going to have a computer in your home and you're going to love it. And people at the time are like, what's a computer? Or, oh, that thing at the office that I don't know how to use and I hate using. No, I don't want one of those. But you have to follow this vision. I mean, it is all about having this vision, and the vision is what keeps you going. So if you have a strong vision, a strong will always defeats a strong won't. That's just the way it is, and if you're not 100% committed to going forward, in spite of the failures, in spite of the difficulties, in spite of the resistance, you're not going to end up where you want to be. So like my advice for founders, and why I talk about founder fortitude, is you have to have this belief. You have to find someone to believe in the believer, which is actually even harder than coming up with the idea on your own. But you also have to keep going despite the world telling you.
Yeah. Basically, talking about to find someone who is the believer or something. That's the moment when I want to introduce our special guest, Johannes Lenhard, who is Dr. Johannes Lenhard, and also anthropologist of the venture capital. So, anthropologist of the venture capital. What does it even mean?
We can look it up together.
Yeah, I mean, it's as straightforward as a methodology to study VCs like you, Sandra, which consists of something as simple as I'm hanging out with people. So I've already written about our dinner on Saturday. No, that's not true, but that's the kind of thing that I do as a way of studying people. I'm trying to be as close as possible to them, to explain to the world what these people really do, rather than just ask them about themselves or do kind of quantitative surveys about people.
Yeah. And so at some point you started talking about the ethics of the venture fund. And I guess you've met a lot of venture funds before you started considering this topic, right? So you talk to a lot of people basically out there. So what's the question is, we were talking like before agent, we were talking about the supporters for the founders, failures, and who basically might be those people who would be the believer in the believers, the people who can support founders. Would venture funds ever do this? I mean, would they support the founder morally or like money-wise if something is not going right? If the startup is not a winner?
I mean, hopefully, right? You would wish that, even just from a human standpoint, that's exactly what VC should be doing. Talking about the ethics of venture capital, just to go one step back, is not, from my perspective, a question of morality, to make that difference, of how I see it very distinctly, which is about good and bad. So when I say ethics, I don't mean judging people about whether this is okay or not okay. So one core understanding of what drives VCs, which is ultimately the question that I asked them, what are you trying to do? Why are you doing what you're doing? And how do you do what you're doing, in very, very simple terms? And one core incentive that VCs have that you have to follow to a certain extent by law is focusing on returns, right? And that might lead to a slightly different answer to your question, namely, if it's at a reasonably late stage, the company is not doing very well, the founder is not doing very well, it might make, and I've seen this more in the American context than in the European context, it might make total sense for the VC to say, fuck you, you're not going to make me the returns that I need, because that's the only reason why I got money from other people, right? I'm not investing my own money. I got money from other people to make them more money, 3 to 4 to 5x more money. And you're clearly not helping with that. So I'm not going to waste any energy on you to push you through here. So that would be the very cynical way of looking at this. And then the age of ESG enters, where something like mental health of a founder or taking care of whatever other issue the founder might have, from my perspective, should absolutely be in the responsibility of the VC. Right? Lots of people are running around, have been running around for decades saying, how can I help you? Right? It's one of these running jokes of what VCs do. How can I add value?
I love that term, add value. When did that, Doctor, when did that become a common phrase in the language? Because people started using that with me about a year and a half ago, and I hate it. How can I add value? I'm not good in addition. I'm good at subtraction. Don't talk to me talking like that. Add value. Yeah. Stupid
I
comment.
think there's a very interesting, what I consider interesting answer to this, which is a historical one. There's only one real history of venture capital that has been published in modern times, which came out 2019 by a Harvard historian called Tom Nicholas. The book is called VC in American History. He traces the whole history back to the whaling industry in the 1880s, which basically functioned in the same way that VC functions. There's a rich guy who gives money to somebody who, in this particular case, has a boat and has this idea of going somewhere and making money on the expedition. But needs funding to make it work. So the rich guy gives that guy money and says, okay, whatever money you make from this expedition, I take 80% of it and you get 20, right? Sounds familiar. And in a certain extent, that is also how venture capital in the modern form in the 1940s started. A lot of family money, we're talking Rockefellers, people that made money in the first industrial revolution, started buying pieces of new, widest respect, technology companies, right? Not technology in terms of internet technologies, as we are understanding it mostly now, but tech companies. And there, the model looked very, very different to what we are used to now, which is a very hands-off, I give you some money, then leave me alone, come back in 10 years and give me lots and lots of money back. Lots of VCs in the original 40s to 80s were much more hands-on. They had whole teams to a certain extent, what Andreessen is now doing to a certain extent more. They had whole teams that went in, helped, closer to what we would now see buyout is. And I think if you ask me, where does this term come from? Actually, these people were adding value because they actually ran the business to a certain extent with the founders, right? They properly helped where they needed help and brought in expertise. And I think the idea that a VC adds value was born in a time when that really happened, then completely disappeared between the 2000s and what is now. And hopefully we're going to get to a point where the VC can actually add value beyond financial value again.
Okay, so people should stop saying it though, right? Like people that aren't in VCs, whenever they want to have a cold introduction, how can I add value to you? Do you recommend they just stop saying that? Because that's a red flag to me. If somebody just comes up to me with no introduction and says, I want to add value, I immediately say, stop talking to me. That's the best value I can have.
I think it's weird, yeah. Particularly for me as a European, I've only really encountered VCs and Americans who say this. In a kind of normal conversation, if that's the intro, I would be like, who are you? That sounds really weird. So yeah, I'd be with you. I don't need other
doctor's orders. Don't go to strangers and say you want to add value, please. It makes me cringe. And now we have it from the authority saying so. Please, if you take anything away from today's talk, take that, please.
Yeah, and coming back to the topic of like startups failing, not failing, and the support from the third parties. So basically, we work with very early stages, So in our world, in our universe, we definitely have to hold startups' hands sometimes, and actually really often, because that's what we do. I mean, we do understand how complicated the world around them is. We do understand how much pressure they're getting, how much stress they're getting. So we are trying to help them as startup psychologists, as they call us sometimes, to kind of to help them, to be there for them. And then there is a question. Then there is this venture fund. Then there is venture fund of Series C, and then there is venture fund of Series A. And mostly what they're doing, they're putting pressure on startups. So the startup would achieve results. And there is, it's really common in between the VCs when they actually only support the winners. They see that the startup is performing. Okay, they're supporting the startup. They see that the founders are getting burned out or something. They quit supporting the startup immediately. They don't do anything for them anymore. And should they?
I mean, in a sense, the cynical answer again is thinking about their own business. It almost doesn't matter too much because the calculations around what a VC needs to, how often a VC needs to win is slightly different in the US than it is in the EU. But say 60% of startups across the board, in the US, that number is even higher, are allowed to fail, right? The VC needs one unicorn per fund. So every 3 years, they need to hit one company that they really do push forward. From their business model's perspective, they know from the beginning, I'm going to make 12 investments, 15. If you're talking, say, a normal seed stage Series A fund or something. One or two of them need to really do well. There will be some, and ideally, I can figure out the likelihood of which ones that's going to be quite early. And I'm going to put them first and foremost in this position where I will help them as much as I can, right? I might bet on the wrong horse, literally, because this is all a future-facing exercise of judgment that has to go wrong because nobody can foresee the future and how that the circumstances change. But from the very beginning, as early as year 2 or 3 or 4 after an investment, a VC will be able to see this is not going to be the one that's going to make this fund return 3x. So again, from there, and the cynical view on this would be, it makes total sense for them to totally disengage, not do pro rata, completely don't engage with that startup anymore, right? Nobody is going to take their percentages away, the ownership away. They can't. So there's no incentive for them to put any more pressure or value add activities in there. Again, from a perspective of should they, thinking about the morality of this all, some VCs have described this whole game, and I think that's how quite a few of them see it, as an endeavor of pure capitalism. And they would end with what I just said. But specifically, some of the ones that are engaged in a community that I've been running recently around considerations of ESG definitely don't. They think about impact. They think about founders, right? As simple as that. They think about what they do in the world as investors, and they think about that relationship between the people that they support financially to begin with and themselves as a partnership rather than just this is an asset I'm buying part of, and that better appreciates that part that I bought. Otherwise, it's completely valueless to me. So I might just as well drop it. So I think it's thinking through on a much higher level what venture capital is might turn a little bit more at the moment away from I'm a shareholder or really an equity holder in your company, and all which is an asset to me, and all that needs to do is grow within the next 10 years because I need to sell it and then I need to make more money than what I put in. To I want to work with people that I really care about, that do something that solves real problems in the world, and that is actually important not just to me or him in terms of financial outcomes, but because it does something. So in an ideal case scenario, I think we're moving towards a world, and I think that exists already in various different corners, where this relationship is as valuable in and of itself that, yes, absolutely, the VC should say to the founder, look, you're struggling with ABCD, I'm going to help you, or take your time out, I'm going to continue supporting you, or can I, whatever, bring in some other people that can help you, right?
Mm-hmm. Shaun, how is it in the United States? I mean, are the funds moving towards some sort of sustainability? Because definitely helping like 2 founders and drop another 10 probably would fit the business model, but was never sustainable in terms of the amount of dead startups, let's say, out there.
I mean, it's difficult because everyone says one thing, but then, they act in a different way. So the whole thesis and the pitch is we care about you and we love you and we support, every single deck that comes in is going to get a detailed response and we want to be your first check, and all that. But at the end of the day, it's still like you reach out to them, say, as a founder, and the odds of getting a call back or a response saying, the usual, you're too early. That's the translation of just, we're not interested. I rather just have them come say that because it's too early. Because the whole point, I feel, for being an investor is to be early, to get in early. So essentially it's hard for me to quantify just because I'm connected with tons of different funds. I'm connected with tons of different investors. And again, the LinkedIn profile page and, their personal website can say all these great things and high ideal things, but when it comes down to it, I can't quantify if they're actually writing the check and then taking a real active role in making sure that they get their investment back, but making sure that founder succeeds. A lot of the startups I worked with that did receive funding, it was just like, here's a check and keep me updated. And I look forward to the quarterly investor email. But that was it. There really wasn't, anything else of, I'm going to take hold of this and I love this and I want to be a part of it and give me a board seat and let's do this. I really had, from my experience, haven't seen it. Share in the chat if I'm wrong and you have a startup that is successfully funded and your investors are active in trying to make a difference. Because I'd love to meet them, help a brother out. But it's a very hard thing to quantify. And I feel like, again, everybody is a gangster and everybody is a philanthropist until it comes time to act and write a check and put their money where their mouth is. That's what it really comes down to. So I'm skeptical, especially when they have to check all the boxes, that they want to stand out and look like they're on the moral high ground and that they're going to help you. And then it's like, okay, let's, as a test, send someone that's a pre-seed company with no investment. Let's see if they get a response. And usually it's just that you just send to the abyss. You go into the void. We do have a question, and I want to encourage other questions. Which is better, an investor who is meddling or those like the absent parents? Doctor, what do you think? Absent parents or meddling investor? What's better?
So that connects nicely to a much more macro point I wanted to make, which is this idea of a founder-friendly investor, right? Which ultimately stands behind this question: what is a founder-friendly investor? Is that somebody who's actually adding value actively, or is that somebody who just says, "I have deep pockets, take as much money as you want, leave me alone," type thing? You can do whatever you want, right? You have all the freedom in the world. You run the show, or somebody who gets involved. I think it should be up to the founder to draw people in, right? The ideal investor would be somebody who does say, you decide, in brackets, unless you're Travis or Adam. I'm wary of these names now after WeWork and Uber, but unless you have either of those names, you decide. But I'm here and I can help you with this, and this, if you need me. So you send me an email, you call me, here's my number, anytime, and I'm going to jump in there into the trenches with you, right? That would be an idea kind of between the two. Neither somebody who's meddling and trying to run this thing as their own business. I think that's nonsense. Lots of VCs don't have any operating experience, particularly in the European context, and shouldn't be left to run any business. Nor the other way around, somebody who doesn't answer emails. That also is at the other end of the extreme, which takes me to one point that I wanted to make, thinking of what you just said, Shaun. There's an incentive at the very moment in the market, which has been flooded for the last decade because of a lower interest rate market environment. Much more generally, the VC industry has seen an insane influx of institutional investor capital because they can't make money elsewhere, so they put it into VC funds, which still very much do deliver, particularly given the tech scene's insane returns over the same time horizon. They deliver returns, so lots of money coming in, meaning there's lots of investors, there's no shortage of money, absolutely no scarcity of money, which was very different in, say, the very early 2000s after the crash, which puts the founder into a very, very good position where they can call people out if, say, they're running around talking to people, including some of the founder's friends. Oh, I'm the best value-add investors. I help you with this, and then they don't deliver. I think these stories now get around quite quickly, and investors who don't keep up with their promises actually might not get into rounds anymore, because rounds are competitive. Good founders can choose investors, and I think that's going to haunt some of the ones that are pretending to be good but not actually delivering.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen, the doctor. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself, which is why I didn't say it.
Yeah, and the next question is, you just mentioned this really interesting thing that the money is that the market is overflooded with money, and there is more and more money on the markets. On the one hand, on the other hand, everyone is carrying, at least saying so, about sustainability. That's the second pillar. Third one, everyone is talking about the mental health of the founders. So these three combined together, and especially one is the biggest one, because a lot of money on the markets means competition for the venture funds. Eventually means that the venture funds, I mean, what I'm actually seeing for the last like 12 months or something, that this is literally fighting for the good deals. And what VCs are trying to do, they are going like later stages basically. And when the VCs are going later stages, at this point, they're not just competing with other venture funds, they're also competing with the pension funds. Because like, let's talk Series C, Series D, right? So pension funds are looking for somewhere to invest. And at these stages, it's pretty much safe investments. I mean, pre-IPO, I'd say the company is going IPO, pension funds can invest there, and so on. So basically, they're taking the piece of the pie of the venture from the venture funds, and family offices are partially going to the venture market. They're taking the piece of the pie from them. So basically, they would be competing, and the only thing they can add to the money is some sort of their experience they can share with the founders, meaning this added expert value. And the second thing that they can add is basically the relationship thing, because whatever like we can talk about, if we're talking about the early stage, investments are about founders and about people. And if we're talking about people, we are talking about the relationship. So how this whole venture ecosystem might change in the horizon of 5 to 7 years?
I mean, I think there's an easy answer to that. Interest rates are going to rise, money is going to get more scarce again, and there's going to be a flip, at least to a certain extent, at least within the next 7 years, back to shift power towards the VC. I'm not too confident that, which I think is broadly a good thing, that the power at the moment is in the hand of the startup founders, because normally I trust them much more than the quote unquote capitalist to be out there, because their work is much harder from what I've seen, to be out there actually wanting to do something good. And the VC, again, the cynical aspect of what they do is really just try and make money for money. But I think we've seen this for far too long now. Lots of people have been talking about a unicorn bubble, and lots of people have been asking the central banks to actually hike up the interest rates again, and that has to come. There's inflation fears in the market, have been for a while. The elections have been ultimately going well. I think there's much less fear that higher interest rates could cause political trouble, which was the problem at one point, particularly in the US context. So I think the unfortunate answer is we don't have to think about how this is going to continue. There's going to be another couple of years of a very fat market. And either that's going to explode, that would be really, really terrible. The good answer here is, or the good observation, the good news is, it's not going to ever, at least not now, explode in the same way that the dot-com bubble exploded, because the shift, and this again has to do with the amount of money in the market, the shift of money from a VC to the public, with the assets going, with the startups going public, IPOing isn't happening as much, because there's so much money in the market that startups stay private for so long that we don't see the wealth transfer. So what happened in the dot-com bust, and why that was really shitty, is our parents were suddenly holding tech shares in their portfolios, which they didn't know anything about, and suddenly they were useless and valueless. That isn't happening to the same extent now. Yes, there's IPOs. Yes, some of these are overvalued. Many of them are overvalued, but not to the same extent, and definitely not in the same kind of frequency. Like from startup start to IPO in 3 years is what we saw in the 2000 crash. That's not happening. To the other extreme, actually, startups are staying private for so long that often there's no value transfer at all. So even if some of these startups explode, which is already happening, has already happened for something like WeWork, that's fine. But that's ultimately going to take down the valuations a little bit, which is really what we're seeing blowing up at the moment. And with the added interest rate rise that we're imminently going to see, I think, again, unfortunately, power shifts back to the VCs.
So, Shaun, how is the temperature in the USA, especially West Coast?
I mean, what can I say when the doctor gives me that answer? All I can say is I concur. I mean, he's got the research, he's got the backing, he's got the data, he's got the title. Yeah, I mean, listen, as far as in the States, I don't know. I mean, I feel like this can't go on forever. I feel like the valuations are so high, and it's just the traction sometimes is so low. And I saw a deck the other day from someone that wanted to do something here in Miami, and it was just, I would never put this in a deck, but he was like, oh, compared to our competitor, we have like a 50% higher engagement rate, but we only have like 80 customers. There's like 80 people with the competitor has millions. But look at us, we're getting higher. And it's like, yeah, if you have 10 people on a newsletter and 9 of them are opening it, it's great. But if you have 150,000 that are actually paying, it's a whole different ballgame. But people just don't care. I feel like as a founder, there is the Kool-Aid, and there is just something that people want to be cool and drink the Kool-Aid and make a deck and show that they have, here's our sample beta size of 100 people or 50 people, all free, of course. And, we're looking for money because if we had the money, the sample size of 50 to 100 people is going to become 50 to 100 million, and you could be the first investor. And I feel like everyone is just, they're throwing everything at the wall with these decks, with these companies that I don't think there's a need for. And I don't think they're going to get funded. And I think people are just, I don't think there's a time or value that's being wasted. I just feel people need to research their idea better and, really, really delve deep into trying to make this happen with what you have. I mean, I've always been an, proponent of, what do I have in the room right now that I can make something happen? I have a phone, I have a computer, I have a network. What can I do? What can I do to make something happen where I can kind of run this on my own? And I don't need to go after, outside money, because at the end of the day, it's still very hard to get outside money. It's still extremely difficult to have someone write you a check and say, you're going to be awesome, and this is the next big thing. And it's a very long process. A lot of founders I talk to think they're going to start raising money tomorrow, and by Friday, the round's going to be closed. It's like, you got like 7 to 9 months. You got it. Like, people don't realize that. Even if you have people that are interested, they probably have partners. These partners have meetings. They go over other, pitches and other ideas, probably ones that are similar to yours. They have their own due diligence process. Then they have to set up a meeting with the partners, and then they have to have another meeting. I mean, this is how it goes. It's never just like, I'm in, I love it, where's your PayPal link? I'll send you the money right now. So that's what people need to realize, because it just, the game is getting harder. And I feel like, as I go back to my very first point in the talk, startups attract psychopaths. And, you have to have a sense of reality. You have to have a sense of reality of like, is this going to excite someone enough to give me X amount of money? Because if the idea isn't cool, they're investing in me. What have I done? Am I the guy that they're betting on? Because on the institutional side, I work with other people where it's like, listen, they're betting on me. They're betting on the team. We're the team that can get it done. And you have to either be that person that wows them and says, this is the guy, this guy's a trained killer, I want to be involved, I want to write him a check. Or the idea has to be so amazing and the traction has to be so good and the metrics have to be so good that it's essentially like, okay, let's talk, let's get this going. And it's a very tough game. I mean, that's why, again, most startups fail. And even when you get money, it's not like it's the end goal. It's not like, oh, we got a check. That just means you have deadlines. Everything, the pressure increases. It doesn't alleviate any pressure. It alleviates the pressure that you have on yourself, but there's pressure now from an outside force that has given you money, that you have a responsibility to hit the metrics and numbers that, that they are prescribing to you. And it's very difficult. It's not for everyone.
Yeah, Shaun, as Johannes is leaving us in 5 minutes, we have a question from the audience, and I think that's the best question to address directly to him. So there are stupid VCs and play safe VCs, but there are also good investors who are risk takers. And the question is how to find those. And I'll rephrase it a little bit. For you as a VC anthropologist, you've seen many of them. So how you would define good VC from bad VC, and what are the definite red flags that actually mean that you can't do any deal with this specific VC?
Oh, that's a very good question. So again, in the particular market environment you're in at the moment, you are in a reasonably comfortable position as a founder, because you should be able to engage a handful of VCs, even though you might not have raised before, or whatever it is that people look for normally, because there's so much money around, there's so many VCs, that you'll be able to talk to quite a few of them, possibly more than 10, definitely more than 10 years ago. So again, that puts you in a position where you can compare notes ultimately between A and B and C, and you should also talk to other founders, right? Don't make this a competitive game. I think that's the most important thing. There's lots of people in similar positions to you who have raised a year ago, who are raising at the exact same time. Talk to these people. There's nothing worse than trying to be competitive, despite obvious issues with, if there's direct competitors that are doing the exact same thing. Yes, there will be issues with that, but anything else, a VC will make an investment in a menopause company and an investment in whatever lightning company within 2 days, if they're both great companies. There's no, again, fueled by this market environment at the moment. Nothing wrong with that. Compare notes, I think, is a very, very good idea with both founders and across your conversations. And use these conversations, as I always also say to my students, this is a two-way process. This is particularly at the moment, this is not, you have to pray that a VC is going to give you money as much as you would have had to do that 20 years ago, 20 years ago already. Figure out whether you want to work with these people, right? Lots of people say this is a relationship, this is a marriage, and we will have to live together for a decade or so. This is important, that you, particularly if it's lead investors, and if they do sit on your board, they really will have a say and will want to have a say in what you do, even if it's just sitting on the board and ticking off the decision makings. And when it comes to what is important in a VC, I think it boils down to something as humane as figure out how they think about the world. What is their mission? What do they want to do? Do they just want to invest in you because they feel that you make them a lot of money, or do they actually get excited? And you can see that, right? Use your brain, use your emotional intelligence. Do they actually care about what you're doing? Do they care about you as a team and the solution, the problem you're solving? Do they care about the problem, right? My partner is a startup founder, and they just went through fundraising their whatever round you want to call it, second round. And they're doing a product for women, and lots of these VCs that they meet happen to be men, but not all men are equal, right? And some men, the first question is, and is this also going to touch on men, or is there a male menopause? And that's, fortunately, my partner's co-founder is really, really a no bullshit person, says this is the last time I'm going to ever speak to you. You never need to contact me again. That's not an adequate question. Do 5 minutes of research before. No, there is no such thing as a male menopause. Thank you very much for your time. Right? Be careful in terms of carefully weighing off how people deal with you, right? Do they turn up to the meeting? Everything that you would also say to somebody who is asking to be hired, or when you're hiring people, it's the same kind of general idea of, do you want to work with these people, right? I think that's what you should really ask yourself. I would not want to give you any idea of this is a good VC and that is a bad VC. I think this is such a personal thing where you need to be able to click with them, and you will figure that out. And again, I think we are in a much more comfortable position as founders at the moment, where you'll have a better chance in actually finding these people that you click with at the moment, because it's not such a run to the top.
Thanks, Johannes, for joining us today.
No, it was great.
And
really
thank you, Doctor.
It was a pleasure.
Looking forward to
Shaun,
speaking again soon.
Yeah,
Perfect.
looking forward.
I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye. And Shaun, we'll continue with the questions and on the topic of the support of the founders, because we've heard about the support of the founders from the venture funds perspective. So why they normally don't give the support, and probably how to look for those who can give you some support at the end of the day, and that the situation is changing in the markets. But where founders would find some support additionally, I mean, so if you're looking for some inner strength to do stuff, to overcome stuff. Yeah,
we're all looking. There's no if. There's no if. Every single person is looking.
Yeah. So what are basically, like, I don't know, what are the techniques that you personally are using, like when when you have this desperate moment?
I mean, I feel like every moment as a founder is living on a knife's edge. That's what it is. And that's the game. Tomorrow is definitely not promised, and every day you have to wake up and fight for your dream, fight for the idea, and it's the toughest thing in the world. One of the things I created, YouTopian Journey, my newsletter that pretty much that's read by a ton of founders and has investors and all that. I post the link right now in the Substack. That right there, I know I'm posting a link in the chat for the Substack. Sorry, that right there, it helps people. I know it does, because one, I've read a ton of books. My whole thing, my support structure is reading. I read every single philosophy, psychology, history, anything that I think is going to be useful. I try to read, and I try to share my learnings with other people, especially founders. And it really applies to not only founders, but just anyone that has, their own aspirations, that have their own goals, which might seem crazy to everyone else. I mean, founders are just on a different league in the sense that they're going to go and take this idea that they have and go after it. Other people might not have the courage, or might not want to do it. They might just want to do their own thing, but I guarantee that they have their own personal Everest that they want to climb, but it's still scary. Just founders, it's 10 times more scary, because you're in the market. You're dealing with this day after day. You're dealing with the customers. You're dealing with the investors, if you have any. You're trying to get investors. It's very rare that I actually meet someone that says, I don't want investors. Everybody wants investors. Everybody wants to have this relationship with either a fund, an angel syndicate, a high net worth individual that can write them a check and believe in them and help them go from point A to point B and grow. But to get that one person, you have to go through hundreds, if not thousands, and you have to have this inner strength and this tenacity to keep going when everyone doesn't respond. It's too early. It's not for us. We love the idea, but we don't think it's right. Our investments are closed for this quarter. There's always going to be, the rebuttal book. And as a founder, you can't really fight the rebuttals. You can't. It's not like you're in a sales position where it's like, oh, well, let me talk to you. Can't do it. VCs and investors are very like, we close the door because we have X amount of other investments that we want to do. And then, of course, we only do one investment a year. So I don't even know why you would as a founder, go after a firm or anything that does one investment a year, because it's the chances that they're going to give you'll be that one investment are just so astronomically low. So you have to keep going. You have to have this inner strength, and you have to have this idea that is so powerful that it keeps you going no matter what. I don't care what people think. I don't care how many investors say no. I'm going to keep going until I get to where I want to be. And when we talked about earlier about, we're investing in the team, well, that's the mentality they want. They want someone that's the killer. If there's anyone that can make this business happen and take this business to 10 more rounds or whatever, this is the guy. This is the guy that's going to do it. So you have to have that. You have to, you can't be arrogant or cocky, but you also can't be very nervous about it. And you can't be very, oh, I don't know, or I'm not sure. You have to just be on point. One of my favorite books that nobody's ever read but me, as usual, but I think it's the best book on entrepreneurship that I can recommend to anyone, because it's literally this thick. You can read it in one sitting. It's like 80 pages. It's called Lucky or Smart. It's a bit outdated. It came out in 2006, I think. But Lucky or Smart talks about, it's from Bo Peabody. He created a company that called Tripod back in the day. For you kids at home that don't realize, Tripod came out in the mid 90s when the internet was new. Nobody knew what it was, and it offered free software to build a website. And all his customers said, what's a website? Nobody cared. Nobody had a computer. Everyone had a phone book. No one's going to, create a website for their business. And he talks about how he had to go raise capital. And, his whole mentality was getting a no was a victory. because most people will not even acknowledge you. They won't even give you their time. He's like, getting a no is the greatest thing, because you can, at least, they read it. At least, that you were on their radar. Yeah, always take the no over never getting, a question answered or a pitch answered. So, I mean, I recommend people having that mentality. No, okay, thanks for your time. I'll be in touch maybe sooner. Just build your own Rolodex, keep it going. And if there's actual positive feedback, take the feedback. But a lot of founders don't like the feedback. They don't like how, people dissect their idea and give them actually valuable information, because they think that they're the expert already in the field. And that's not the case. And they have to make the distinction of being able to stick to their guns and know what's going to be real and what they want to do, and actually take someone's feedback that could benefit them in ways they never imagined.
You know what? I think I also have some recipe for this, because when you're a founder, you're not about today, you're about the future, right? So nothing will happen today or tomorrow. It's a long journey, and something would be definitely happening in the future. It might be either a fail or a success, but something's gonna be out there. The thing is that to get to this future, you have to do something today, and that's the trickiest part, because you don't get this immediate prize for doing something. So basically you did something, then you made another step, then you made another step, and then something over there is waiting for you and probably don't even know what it is. So we have this saying, like when we're talking to founders, how do I eat the whole elephant? Like piece by piece. This is what you did. Today you eat the first piece, now the next day you eat the second piece and everything. And probably the one thing that's can actually help the founders. I mean, nothing that you will do like today or tomorrow or after tomorrow will significantly change. I mean, you can't fail completely. If you fail like with the pitching to the investors, it happens. There are tons of investors out there like in the world. If you failed with your customers, if you got some sort of bad reviews from the customers, it happens. There are tons of customers out there. The only thing that really matters is that the next day you find new investors, the next day you find new customers, and you just keep going step by step with doing what you did. I mean, it's on the one hand, it's like it's quite a journey and everything, and requires strength and requires like creativity. On the other hand, it's just a routine. I mean, you have to dedicate like all your 12 hours per day or whatever, like 24 hours per day to your startup, and just keep going.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially, well, two things to that. One, there's something called TAM, which whenever I bring it up to a founder, they're like, what's a TAM? And the TAM is the total addressable market. That's the little, Venn diagram you have or pie chart that shows this is the market. And, the markets are always millions of people. Even if it's a niche market, it's still, millions of people, 800,000 people. You have a giant market. So if there's a few people that are giving you bad reviews, or if there's, investors that want to talk to you, you have the TAM. The TAM is massive. You're going after, you're going to do this or going to disrupt that, if disruption's still a thing. I don't think it's a thing anymore, but that was the thing. Remember, like 10 years ago, we're disrupting everything. We're disrupting, I don't know, deli sandwiches. We're going to go in and show them how it's done. So you have the TAM, and two, you have to have this laser-like focus that, okay, this is what we're going after. This is what I can do, and I have the time to do it. And I'm the person that can get this done, and I'm going to get it. I'm going to do it one way or another. I'm not going to let the bad reviews stop me. I'm not going to let the people stop me. I'm not going to let the lack of interest stop me. I'm just going to keep going. And, it's easy to say, but it's hard to do, because again, everybody wants to be the expert and the success and the gangster. But when it comes to it, you're going to be doing stuff on a Friday night or a Saturday morning when the rest of the world is brunching or partying or going out. And you're going to be in like your little cubicle, your co-working space, or in your home office working and writing emails and getting the marketing materials. And it's not a fun process. It's a lonely process. And people need to realize that, they have to master themselves to do it. They have to turn off their phone, get away from social media, focus on the business. There's a quote from Stephen Pressfield that says the amateur tweets and the professional works. And I love that quote, because my social media has always been negligible, never cared, because I was too busy working on something. I was too busy trying to make stuff happen and actually get deals going and actually have a business. I never cared about the amount of followers or anything like that, or engaging in threads, because I was too busy trying to make something happen. And I feel like that's, as a founder, you have to make something happen. You have to be the executioner. You have to execute on your objectives, regardless of how difficult it is. And with that being said, we have an old question. I don't want to miss it. I don't. We both can answer it because I don't really have much experience with this. But how important do you think it is to be physically in the U.S. in terms of successful fundraising and running the remote business at all?
Well, you're physically at your, I mean, physical at US meaning what? Meaning being there or meaning having a network there? Because definitely, I mean, you can have like remote network of people, which is huge or something, but you can actually answer this question. I mean, how does like trust work in this industry? How do people actually, is it important for people to, would they invest from a person who is coming from nowhere? Basically, they don't have like a common network with this person. They have no idea what those founders are. Would they just throw money at them, or do they need?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
the last part.
No. Do you need to have to be present? I mean, not just only like present, like. I mean, if you are already like $10 million company, $20 million company is different. But when you're a small startup and no one knows you, is network important when you're fundraising?
I think network is the most important thing possible right now. And I think there's never been an easier time to establish yourself. And by I mean establish yourself, there's an old quote that says the best way to become established in the world is to already appear established. You know, there's nothing stopping you. And one thing that I hate, that I always see people, that if it's their first startup or the first time doing something, they always have to say, I'm new, I've never done this before. You don't have to say that. No one's asking you. People don't want to hear that. That only comes up when you've already wowed someone and you impress them to the fact they're like, wow, how long have you been doing this? This is your first one. This is amazing. People always like to talk about, their inefficiencies and their inadequateness when they first come out the gate, and they don't need to talk about that. You can establish yourself right now and create a profile and start networking on all these different channels, whether it's Slack channels, groups, here, whatever. It's essential. People want to talk. Most people I know, they're not going to automatically invest. But the majority of people, they're looking for deals. They at least you want to introduce yourself. You probably won't get a response, but at least try, and take, it costs nothing to do a Zoom call. It costs nothing to pitch and just practice on it. There's so many different, groups and networks for first-time founders out there that are free to join, that you can learn from and you can network. And it's easy to establish a network if you, actively care about it. And usually in my experience, because I have a massive network, it comes from what can I do for you? It's not what can you do for me? It's what can I do for you? How can I help you? Let me look at this. And it just, having someone that you can call and trust and say, hey, do you know an investor here that you can introduce me to? That's how it all comes about. It's about either, if I don't meet them directly, it's about asking someone that I already met. Do you know someone here? Or ask your network. And it's so easy now to post a question on Facebook or whatever and say, does anyone have any investors or any access into this company or any access into this industry? I have a friend that's looking. I mean, I've gotten contacts, I've gotten clients just from that. So, I feel like, you start by establishing yourself with one contact and then growing it to 10 and then 100 and then just being present. I mean, it's an international world now, and it's a hyper connected world, so if you're fundraising in the US, I mean, it might help to be here. It might help to at least come and visit and have knowledge of it. But if you've never been here and don't have any knowledge of it, it might make it a little difficult. And second, depending on what country you are in, it might be better to do something from that country itself or other funds or other companies that focus on that region. Because everything's now sliced up. Everything's sliced up. We focus on these industries in this region. And people are going region to region, state to state, canton to canton, I don't know, county to county. Everything is being sliced up, because everyone wants to, try and, start a fund, start an accelerator, start something, but do it to the extent it's like, well, unless you're in a 100-mile area of us, we don't care, and I've seen it happen where it's like, you're great, we'd love to have you come speak, but, you have no experience in the Oklahoma startup network. And it's kind of like, who does? So it's all about establishing your network, right now, this moment, reaching out to people, but don't say you're going to add value, reaching out and saying, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'd love to pick your brain. I'd love to get some advice. If you could take 5 minutes to take a call, just being very respectful. Again, some people won't respond. Some people might deny you, but 99% of the time, you're going to get people that say, sure, I'll hop on a call. Here's my Calendly. Calendly exists for people to showcase how busy they are, just so you can click for the 15-minute time frame they have 3 weeks from now on a random Friday to chat with them.
I love it. I love yeah, this thing when basically founders are approaching me on LinkedIn. Hi Sandra, I'm doing the startup, blah blah blah, and everything. I'm like kind of okay. So how can I help? And they said like I want to pitch the startup to you. I said like fine, let's have a call. Here is my Calendly. Go choose the slot.
Yeah, of course, because I have to show how busy I am. I'm so busy. I can't take. I contacted you, but I can't take my call. Again until 2 months from now, randomly between 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. But not before 1:30. Only at this slot. And it's like, listen, no one's that busy. Okay, like if it's important, you'll make time. Next question: how do you balance fundraising and sales as a startup CEO? Well, let me show you my calendar. We can pick a time and you can talk. How do you balance fundraising and sales as a startup CEO? So, I mean, are you a solo founder? Is there people on a team? I mean, that's more of a multi-pronged kind of question. Okay, good. We got a team of 3. So please take it.
I think it's like that's basically, that's not the question only about sales, that's the question about traction as well. So basically, at which extent you should invest a lot of efforts in fundraising, because a lot of founders do this basically, it's always what comes first. Do I make some traction first and then I go look for the money, or if I kind of attract some money from the investors, it would be easier for me to do some sales because it requires some tweaks in my products, whatever. So the best answer to this question would be, okay, you can get money from business angels, like friends. Okay, let's not even talk about venture investors, like friends and family and fools and banks, wherever you can get some initial money to show the initial traction, unless you're a deep tech or a hardware. You deep tech, I mean, not like something that is calling them deep tech because they put an AI word in their presentation, not this one. I mean,
machine learning.
Yeah. Now, machine learning, if it's an Excel, AI, if it's a presentation. So like you have to learn this if you want to be in the startup field. So yeah. So if you are a founder of a pretty much typical startup, the thing that you have to show the investor, what investor cares about, is that you're solving a real world problem, that your solution is actually needed by someone, you have a value proposition, and that this one is scalable. Believe me, you can do all this without raising any sort of money. I mean, literally, launching a landing page on Tilda will cost you $0 and collect the initial feedback from the users. We are going to launch this amazing products in whatever, like 2 months. Be the first one to subscribe and you will get like 50% discount on this product or something else. Talk to the customers and make a map of like what are the problems that they're having and what is the solution that they're looking for. To get this traction, the initial traction, doesn't require money in most of the cases. After this, when you have the initial traction, it would be much easier for you to fundraise. So what to focus on first? Sales and traction. After this, because then it will be easy peasy to get the funding. If you are struggling at the same time with the sales and getting the funding, you're doing something wrong with sales. If you're doing something wrong with sales, you probably won't ever get funding. So you'll lose like triple the time you've lost on doing this.
Genuine feedback with a smile. Follow up, any tips on improving product message fit? Okay, they want to pilot. I mean, it's yeah, so they want to pilot generally, and if not, they want to talk to us when it's ready. I mean, the thing is, the product's never going to be ready. It's always going to be improving, especially in tech. There's always going to be version 2.75. And, it's not a bug, it's a feature. I mean, it's just, that's more of, again, a multi-pronged question, because we'd have to know more about, your actual product and your messaging. And, it's not something we can just answer because we don't know about your product or your messaging. But, it's always a constantly improving thing. It's always it's constantly growing. It's constantly evolving. And there's never an end to the evolution of it. You're always going to be adding new features. You're always going to be, brainstorming. You're always going to be talking with new potential clients that are going to maybe have a need that you never considered. And that need could be, oh, wait, that could be the one need that changes everything. So All right. Well, my bad. Our struggle is we have a two-sided market, so two different messages. Okay. Well, that's please take it, Sandra.
Yeah, can I say something about the pilot? So when your customer says we're ready to pilot, bring it on, you say to the customer, okay, put your money where your mouth is. So you're ready to pilot, let's sign a contract. We're charging, I don't know, 15, 20K for the pilots. And we're actually delivering the pilot over the course of 3 to 4 months. We're good to go. You're not ready to pay us for the pilot? They don't want the pilot. They don't care. Because those companies, especially if we're talking about bigger companies, they have all the money to do the pilots with the startups. If they prefer to do the pilot on the startup's expense, it means that they actually don't believe in this product. And it's just, innovation manager sitting out there like, waiting, pilot, the startup is offering a pilot. Okay, if this pilot goes right, I'll add to my KPIs. If this pilot goes wrong, I'm not losing anything because I'm not investing any money in this pilot. Come, pilot, sure, we are very interested. It's a no. I mean, no free pilots. If they're really interested, they'll pay you. If they say like, sorry, we won't pay, but we will have a nice pilots, they won't. It's the same with Shaun, it's the same with the typical customers. If startups are doing the research like this, they're going to customers and say like, we are going to develop such a nice product. Will you buy it? Everyone would say, yes, totally. Yes, the product is so nice. However, when you come to those people and say like, okay, pay me $20 in advance, and in 6 months, I will bring you this product. At this very time, you realize that no one actually needs the product. Like, pay $20 for what? No, I won't be paying for it. No.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's I keep going back to it. Everyone loves you until they have to sign a check, until they have to transfer the funds, so yeah. That's what it kind of comes down to. You have to fill the need. There has to be a need that people say, I need this in my life. It has to get to the point where it's just ubiquitous enough that when they see it, I love this, I need this. There's something that just is, okay, I'm going to pay it. As a customer, I think this is the coolest thing ever. I'm signing up right now. No thoughts, no hemming and hawing, no talking to my friends, no posting on my social media. I want this. It seems so cool that I want it, and it's X amount of dollars and I want to do it. So, I feel like you have to, one, really hit that niche, have the marketing and the messaging right. And really, put your money where your mouth is. It comes back to the TAM. You have a total addressable market. You're not servicing one client. It'd be great if we could have, we only have one client and our client's Apple and we do all their stuff. That's great, but it doesn't exist. You're going to have probably multiple clients. You're going to need to have, depending on your business, hundreds of clients, thousands of clients, tens of thousands of clients, especially if you're taking venture money, because you got to scale, you got to just scalability. Everyone's got to scale. So, again, if one person doesn't want it, okay, move on to the next, and I know getting the first paying customer is difficult, but, it becomes easier. I don't know if it becomes easier, but you become more attuned to it. You become better, you become stronger, you become more resilient. So that's kind of how we keep rolling, at least how I keep rolling. Okay, not interested, fine, because you're not going to remember that person a week from now, a month from now. You're certainly not going to remember them a year from now. Trust me, you're just going to keep moving. And that's what I tell everyone, just keep moving, keep hustling.
Yeah, well, when it comes to product market fit and everything, money is the answer. I mean, if customers are paying you, not saying we are ready to pay or something, if they're actually paying you, that's the answer. I know a couple of startups from our communities, and one of those startups, they were actually building a pretty sophisticated software for the designers, and they were struggling to raise money, and it included actual real AI and stuff like this, and they needed a lot of money in development, and they were struggling to raise, because when they were coming to the angel investors, they said like, show us traction. And the startup was like, we can't show any traction because the software is not there yet. And I said like, okay, so what you can actually do, you can go to the communities of those designers and you can share your very unready software, mock-ups, whatever, with those designers and tell them, look, we are building this and this. And here is the deal. If you pay us $5 now, you are getting a lifetime subscription to the software that's going to be free. So $5 for the lifetime. Or you wait when we are going to launch, and then you are going to pay $100 per month. So basically, just to figure out if those people actually need it, if they're going to invest this $5 in the idea of the software, in actually the mock-ups of the software. And what happens? They really had a product market fit. And there were like 600 of people who actually gave them $5 for the non-existent software. And then they came to the investors, and investors said, that's the proof. That's what we wanted to see. Those people actually paid you. And they said, like, yeah, now you have the money for the development, and now you can do the things. So this is how it works. You have to have proof that people are ready, to choose you. And the only sign that someone has chosen you is, unfortunately, money. Unless you're married, but in this case, it might be also about the money.
I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, that's there. One thing I want to add is that if you're truly interested, there's two good resources, both Substack. There's a Substack called Lenny's Newsletter. You can read it for free. I mean, most of the stuff is behind a paywall, but you can read a lot of the stuff for free of a lot of early stage startups got their first 100 customers, first 1,000 customers. There's another Substack called First 1,000, which it's all about how companies get their first 1,000 users. I think that one's free also. And just check it out. I mean, it's really interesting how you see how a Salesforce did it, how a Facebook did it, how an Uber did it, how these companies had to do it, because everyone starts off in the same boat, the same shipwreck, the same lifeboat, where it's like, how do we test our idea where the whole world's going to want it? And there's different ways to do it. So I just say, check it out and keep doing research, because every founder is different. Every startup is different. Every market is different. And what works for someone could be harmful to you. There's no right way. There is only the way that works for you. So do as much research as you can and keep experimenting. Again, like, you're going to have failures on the way. You're going to have failures raising the money. You're going to have failures getting the customers. You're essentially, this is one big failure, but a failure is just a successful person is just a failure that keeps showing up time and time again. And there's the Winston Churchill quote, which I'm going to end on unless there's any last questions. So shoot them right now, that, success is going from failure to failure without the loss of enthusiasm. That's all it is. So I want everyone to remember that, and, to keep moving forward and to keep experimenting, and to keep hustling. That's all you can really do. And as long as you do that, as long as you don't give up, and as long as you don't, just completely go to sleep on it, essentially you'll keep learning, you'll keep experimenting, you'll meet new people, and you might end up with a different product than when you started with, and that's okay. No one's going to judge you on the products that didn't work. They're going to judge you on the one winner. Can you post the link to the Substacks you mentioned? I don't have a link. I will mention the names though, for anyone's interested. Check them out. I'm a subscriber to both. I think they're awesome. I think they'll help you. Just Google them, and you'll be on your road. So any other questions? Last one. We want to do this as last one. Sure. Last one. In your opinion, what is the best VC platform or place to find open-minded VCs who want to hear startups? Baltic Sandbox Accelerators. This is for you.
Now, platform. I mean, it doesn't work like this. VCs are not, sitting on the platforms waiting for the startups. It doesn't happen. So basically, the best way to get the best VC is to get the introduction to this VC. You can get this introduction from the founders of other startups. The best way to do this is to grow your network and to become a part of the community. Because once you have a community, and by the way, we invite everyone to join our community because it's huge, from like Australia to United States and everywhere in between. Once you're part of the community, you get introductions to different venture funds, one to one another and everything. And once you are actually the person who is communicating with them, who is building the network, who is asking them, how can I help? Probably I can, recommend you some startups or something. Once you build trust in this network, this is when those venture funds and other investors are starting to show up. Because, I mean, you can open like thousands of VCs databases, but the ugly truth is, do you know how many VCs somehow react to the cold emails or cold approach on LinkedIn or something, or on like a form on their website? Less than 2% globally. And out of those, the statistics is the following: 70%, if they even react, at this cold emails, so called introductions, 17% of the introductions go through the other VCs and other founders. 20% of the introductions of the startups that they're looking for, they see at different conferences and pitch sessions. And then only 10% So 2% of VCs are basically even doing this. And out of this 2%, only 10% of their attention goes to emails. It means if their pipeline is full, if they have a lot of introductions, they won't ever look at the cold emails. So don't try to find the magic database of the VCs who invest in unicorns. It doesn't exist. Grow your network. This is how your startup will evolve. This is how you will evolve. And this is how you'll find the right investor at the end of the day.
And just to add, I mean, I know two managing partners of two different funds, one of which is like a $400 million fund. And even though I know them, even though I did a panel with them, even though got the phone number and everything, if I have any idea, any startup founder, anyone that wants to get an introduction, they have to go to the link and they have to fill out the form and they have to spend the 45 minutes and put the video up and put the traction and put everything up there, because they will not talk to you. If my name is in the system, they'll flag it so that they will read it, but they won't talk to you otherwise. Doesn't matter. And that's the warmest, not even warm, that's a hot introduction. They still will refer to you because there are way too many people that have the game-breaking idea and the game-changing idea. And you know, it's essentially, you know, it's the way to vet people. All right, let's see if you're real. Fill out the 55 question form and put it, you know, show us everything you've got and let's see, you know. So that's one thing, you know, so that determines who's real and who's fake. And they're probably going to invest in 0.00001% of everyone that fills out the form, but they know it because everybody wants to work with them and get investment and whatnot. So yeah, I just wanted to add that. I want to say keep hustling, keep going, and you know, it's not you, it's them. That's one thing. It's the entire industry.
But think about one moment before we will wrap up. Think about one moment. Imagine some people who were like 3 or 4 years, you were looking up to them. 3 or 4 years ago, you were looking up to them and like, wow, they are so cool. They're so great. They kind of, I would never be the part of their network. I will always look up to them and everything. And think about how do you communicate with those people now? Like if you're growing your startup, if you're evolving, during every step of the way, all the situation around you is changing. This is coming back basically to founders, supports, and everything. So, for example, like 3 years ago, some VCs, they were looking, you know, down at you like, who are you? You're not even a startup. I mean, like, we won't even talk to you, and so on. And after 3 years, they're saying you, well, your startup is, you know, pretty interesting. You're probably not of our geography or not of our focus, but we would definitely make some introductions to other venture funds because we've seen your journey as a founder and we respect your journey. We respect what you're actually doing because people are respecting doers at the end of the day, not those who are saying or not saying something on social media.
Exactly. I like that. What better way to end on that? Well said. So if you have any other questions, well, we're done. Come to the next one, which we're going to be doing in 2 weeks with another special guest. How are we going to top the doctor? I don't know. But we'll try.
I have some ideas.
See, we always try to give you good content, interact with some really, really intelligent people and people that can help you on your startup journey, and to have this founder Fortitude. And yeah, follow the page on LinkedIn if you haven't already. And, you know, if you have any other questions, you can reach out to either of us via LinkedIn. If not, feel free to add me. And yeah, anything we can do to help. And if there's no other questions, nothing else, thank you for being here, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for being here, and see you.